Hi, it's Tina today, and today's video is to show you how I created my Bloom art journal spread with the February kit. So I'm using the art journal that I have used for most of my art journal spreads for Frog Dog Studio. It's an old 1930s ledger journal that actually has held up very well to all of the paint and different product that I put onto it. The paper, you would think from the 1930s would be pretty weak, but it's actually fairly strong. So I'm just reinforcing it with some gesso here. You see I'm not putting it on real thick. I still wanted some of that background to show through. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. I knew I was going to use pan pastels, but I wasn't sure. I just was going with it. So I wanted the pan pastel to have something to grab onto for the background. So the February kit comes with the two colors of pastels, the magenta and the permanent green. So I'm going to use some of those, but I also pulled out my pan pastels that I have from my own stash for this project as well. So the soft tool that is also, there's a set of 3 that are included in the February kit, is what you would use to put the pan pastels down. So you can see me just starting to layer some of the color on my art journal page. The pan pastels blend very beautifully together, and they're very vibrant. And you can see me just with my second color, I'm going to go ahead and layer it down. And you see the paper towel to the left? That's how you clean those soft tools off. So you don't have to have one per color. Once you're done with the color, you can see me wiping it off there. It's clean. It doesn't contaminate your pan pastels. Trust me, even though it looks like it's dirty, it's not contaminated. So I was going with the magenta and the yellow color palette for this. You can see in several of my projects I was a little bit obsessed with that this month. So I started putting that down. You can see I'm just trying to build some color to the background. I'm not being real particular. I'm actually being pretty messy by putting the color down, but you can see how well the pan pastels blend together. And it is very low dust. There isn't a lot of dust out there. I mean, obviously I have a little bit on my fingers, but you can see they're not really that dirty from the pan pastels. It's a great medium to work with, and you don't require water, so you can actually take it with you if you're traveling and stuff. So there's several ways you can set a pan pastel, because if you did not set it here, it would flake off and it would rub off. So I'm just using water. So I'm spraying it with water. When you activate it with water, it sets it down on the page. You can also use hairspray, which is fairly cheap, or you can use an actual fixative on it. And I've used all of them to set the pan pastels, and they all work great. So now what I thought I would do is, you can see me with some primary elements there from Luminart. I'm going to go ahead and use those. I got a tool to kind of scrape into some wax. I'm going to put wax medium down on my page, and that's what's to the right of me. You can see my wax pellets melting and my brush is melting. So while that's melting, what I thought I would do is take one of these stamps. The stamp is actually from SimCity. It's Gears. It's great for backgrounds and stuff. So I thought I would preload it and have it ready to go when I'm using my wax medium. So I'm going to take the primary elements that I showed you earlier and apply it to the stamp. So I sprayed the stamp with some water, and now I'm dabbing on some of that powdered mica primary elements onto the stamp. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. I just thought I'd go ahead and do it to see what kind of effect I get on my background. I thought I was going to do, well, I did do this as the wax was wet and not hard. And then I also stamped it on the side where there was no wax, again, just to see what type of effect I would get from the stamp. So I'm just getting it preloaded when I'm ready to go. So the trick with wax medium is to make the paper, the canvas, whatever you're putting your wax on, that surface has to be as hot as the wax itself. So my wax is melting at about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can see me with my heat tool heating up my paper to the same temperature. It's hot. So when I place that wax down on my paper, it's melting into the paper. So you do very thin layers. You can see me just going over it and over it. I remelt it and just keep blending it, because if you have areas where the wax it's really white and milky, it's too thick. So you want to blend that out. So now I'm taking that preloaded stamp and I'm stamping it right into that wax that I had just laid down. You can see it really didn't pick up a lot of the detail of the stamp. I didn't think it would, but it actually is raised because of the wax, so it did push into the wax a little bit. So you can see on the right side, I actually took that stamp and stamped it before I put the wax down, and I put the wax on top of it. And it didn't smear it. It was dry before I did that, so I was concerned. I didn't know if it would smear it or not, but it didn't on that side. So I'm just layering more wax on, one thin layer at a time, going over it and remelting it, letting each layer blend into each other. And you can see how it reacts with the pan pastels. It really creates this soft, muted look. Those colors were pretty bright when I first put them down, but you'll see as we go, the wax creates a really great background, and then with some more of the primary elements that I put on it, which creates a shimmer, it's kind of a shiny, shimmery background. So now I'm taking another little stamp. I thought I would create more texture to the background, and I've never done it except for now, read that you can stamp into wax, but I think the stamp actually has to sit into the wax a little bit more and until the wax hardens a little bit, and I was impatient, so I didn't let it sit there very long. But I will use that stamp throughout the spread. I've used it several times. It did create a little bit of texture to the background in some areas. Again, you can't really see it on the video, but there is some texture there into the wax from the stamp. So I stamped on that side over top the image that I already put on there, so you can see it stuck quite well to that side, so I was just careful when I pulled it off. There is a lot of texture on that side as well. So I'm layering more wax and stamping into it. It's very good to be prepared when you're using wax medium, so you can see that I've got all my supplies very close to my hands because you have to work pretty fast. The page has to be pretty warm to let it melt. So there I was just actually trying to create some texture with the wax, so it wasn't completely flat, just to see what it would do if the area wasn't real hot. But it really didn't do a whole lot, so I went ahead and melted it and just kind of blended it in. So that you can see the page is starting to pick up some of that shimmer from the wax. And you can see on that page right there how fast that wax melts on that page when you heat it. So now this is just a skewer, I think a skewer that I would have used to make kebabs on the grill. And I am just drawing into the wax, and that's what's really awesome about wax. You can do some hash marks, you can draw circles, and because the wax it's a thin layer on there, it does create some texture to the background. So now what I'm going to do is take some of that primary element powder, and I really wanted to kind of get it into those areas that I dug out with the skewer. So one great way to use primary elements is, and you'll see me do it here in a minute, if you spray some hairspray on the background and then rub the primary elements on top of it, it fixes it right into the page, and then it kind of blends. So you can see me put the hairspray down, I'm layering some of the primary elements right onto it, and it gets fixed right into the background. You don't have to worry about it, and you just kind of work it right in. So all those areas that I had scratched out with the skewer are the areas that I'm really focusing on to see if I can get it into the crevices of that wax. You can see me just working that into the background. And you really see a lot of the shine show up as we move some more of these primary elements into it with the wax, and then the shimmer from the elements. And I'm going to go ahead and use another color. This one was new. You can see it looks purple in the jar, but it actually comes out like a berry, purpley red berry color. So you can see that's a lot redder than it would even look in the jar. In the jar it looks completely purple. But it's a really beautiful, beautiful shade. You can see it has some purple shimmer to it. Hairspray is wonderful. It's another thing that'll probably be sitting on my desk with my gesso. Between pan pastels and primary elements. You can really see a lot of that shimmer when I move the page back and forth between the wax. It just created this very soft, muted background by putting the wax on top of the pan pastels. It really blended that all in together instead of just one color here and there. And then the stamping added just some texture to the background. So now what I'm doing is taking some of my Viva Decor Inca Gold in the gold and rubbing it on the page. So all those areas that are raised where I've done hash marks into the wax or stamped into the wax, it will pick up on there. So since this page is so shimmery, I thought it would be fun to put some gold. Then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with this page, other than I knew at this point I wanted to doodle on it, but the problem was my doodle pen wasn't really writing into the wax because it was wax. So I used my skewer and I actually outlined this entire stencil using my skewer. So now I had a mark in the wax that I used as a guide. And I took my Montana markers, I took some of my Jelly Roll markers, and I took some Liquiflume alcohol ink markers and went ahead and doodled that stencil in. Then I also took that blue color of the pan pastel and went around the outside, so you can see it toned it down. It really made that doodle stand out a lot. Then I stamped on a piece of resin paper that I had created and embossed it, and you can see that on there. And then I doodled around each one of the letters, and the doodle, my regular doodle pen and my white Uniball marker actually worked on the resin very well. I was kind of surprised. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and I stapled them onto my art journal page. Again, it just created some textual look to the page. So you can see my letters are done there, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut them out. So that is how I created my art journal page this month. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and have a great day.